Hidden within rural Utah, there is a place that harbors many secrets. This arid land is considered a hotspot for a wide variety of strange and terrifying activity. Some consider it cursed, while others consider it to be haunted. Today, we will be discussing the mystery of Skinwalker Ranch, here on Mystery Archives. Before we dive into the history of Skinwalker Ranch, I first want to inform you as to what a Skinwalker is. According to Navajo legend, a Skinwalker is a medicine man or witch which has attained the highest priesthood of the tribe, but one that has chosen to use their power for evil. They are typically known for shape-shifting to inflict pain and suffering upon others, and to become a Skinwalker requires one of the most devious deeds, the murder of a close family member or loved one. Once this is accomplished, the pact is made and the priests now gain supernatural power beyond their wildest imagination. With it, they are typically known for shape-shifting into both animals and other people to suit their nefarious task. They are also still incredibly feared to this day as they were in the past, particularly by the Navajo people, who refuse to call them by their native name for fear of retribution. Just speaking about them could put you in danger. Terry and Gwen Sherman were just your average cattle farmers. That was until they purchased 512 acres southeast of Ballard, Utah. What followed was a series of disturbing events that would change them forever. It began with a strange encounter with a wolf on their property. They saw this wolf attempting to eat one of their calves, so Terry shot the creature several times, but yet it wasn't mortally wounded. It simply looked at him and began to slowly walk away. Then, the real activity started. Within seemingly no time at all, the Shermans began to see what could only be described as UFOs above their property. These ranged from small circular and cigar-shaped craft to craft supposedly the size of a football stadium. They would also describe portals that would open in the sky, and that these ships or craft would move in and out of at insane speeds. Shortly after the experiences started, many of their livestock began to be mutilated, and although this is odd in and of itself, the animals would be found in strange locations around the property, and stranger still, they would be completely drained of blood. And upon further study, the incisions found on the animals' bodies could have only been made with a laser-type tool, because the lacerations were burned into the animals with incredible precision. Other livestock would vanish altogether, with no traces to where they could have gone, and some would be found in utterly bizarre places. In one instance, a cow went missing and hoof marks were found leading up the side of the barn, as if the animal had walked or had been dragged up the side of the barn and beyond. This particular cow was never seen again. And in another instance, a calf which had just been led into its pen seemingly disappeared, only to be found 15 minutes later in the top loft of the barn, startled, but otherwise safe, with no explanation as to how the massive animal could have gotten there on its own. When you hear about aliens beaming up cows of all things, it's easy to laugh it off. However, the nightmarish predicament that the Sherman family found themselves in was no laughing matter. By 1996, 4 of the family's prized cows, an important part of their income, vanished into thin air. Another 3 were found mutilated in various ways, and when Terry Sherman asked other ranchers about the insanity, they confirmed that their own cattle had been mutilated in the past, and that the local authorities hadn't been able to help them. The Shermans also began to describe their experiences with often invisible entities they called the beings. These beings would often play tricks on the family, such as misplacing items, locking doors, and moving livestock. But what started out as seemingly harmless behavior soon escalated. They began to torment the family, not only through cattle mutilation, but they also began to visibly make themselves seen on rare occasion and would attempt to get into the house, causing the family immense distress. Finally, in 1998, the family had had enough. They decided to put the ranch up for sale for a fraction of what they had originally paid for it. A billionaire by the name of Robert Bigelow, who was also the chairman of the National Institute of Discovery Science, or NIDS, had been in contact with the SHERMANS for years prior, in an effort to try and understand just what was taking place on their land after they reached out to the NIDS for help. When the property went up for sale, he quickly stepped in and purchased it. A team of researchers and a plethora of scientific surveillance equipment was promptly brought in, and the ranch was unofficially renamed Skinwalker Ranch, in honor of the native peoples who had been studying these beings for centuries. The National Institute for Discovery Science, although mostly focused on fringe science, is actually far from unscientific. Their roster boasts many researchers with PhDs, ex-military backgrounds, and ex-NASA personnel among their consultants. I say this because everything in the video from here on out is going to be very unbelievable. There is a specific but unassuming spot on Skinwalker Ranch where some uniquely terrifying things have happened. In this spot, a researcher was assaulted by a creature that he said blended in with the surroundings, rendering it almost invisible. Curiously, the creature didn't hide from the crew once it was spotted. It continued to roar and posture towards them until it vanished. Close to the same spot, another team of researchers witnessed what could only be described as a portal or glowing door being opened in a field, and a large humanoid creature that came forth from the portal spotted the researchers and then quickly disappeared as it rushed back into the portal before it closed. In yet another instance near the hotbed of activity, a doctor of physics was suddenly held motionless against his will by an invisible force. In his accounts of the episode, he said, and I quote, "Numerous entities had invaded my mind while I was being held still and communicated to me a single message, that I and other members of my species were not welcome." While this particular spot may have been the epicenter for activity on Skinwalker Ranch, the activity itself is not entirely confined to the ranch. Junior Hicks, a retired school teacher from the local area, has been cataloging these strange happenings for many years. These happenings include over 400 UFO sightings, with photo evidence. By Hicks' estimate, at least 50,000 people in the area have been witness to one phenomena or another, including law enforcement and other reputable members of the community. The UFO activity really began to pick up in the 1950s, according to Hicks. There were several cases where the entire school, including the teachers, saw things hover around town in broad daylight. And in the 1960s and 70s, we probably had more UFO sightings than anywhere else in the world. Some other noteworthy sightings on and around Skinwalker Ranch have been a plethora of strange animals who have been seen wandering as if lost. Descriptions of these many creatures include an extremely large wolf with one eye that walks upright, a large and hairy man or bear-type creature, and a creature that's about the size of a football with butterfly wings, but its wings are entirely reptilian in nature. It's easy to argue that there should be hundreds of photos of these incidents taking place, and to some degree there are, but the bulk of the activity happened between the 1950s and 70s, aside from the SHERMANS experiences, and the technology capable of capturing photos was not as easily available or widespread at the time. Although the National Institute for Discovery Science was able to document some tremendous activity on the land, the happenings grew further and far between. They became so scarce, in fact, that in 2004, Robert Bigelow closed down the NIDS due to a lack of fringe activity to study and subsequently sold the ranch. However, during the time of the Skinwalker Ranch studies, The NIDS had a prevailing theory as to what was taking place there, that all occurrences were the act of a single precognitive intelligence. The leading researcher at the time explained, "It's not as simple as saying ETs and flying saucers are doing it, but rather it's some kind of consciousness. It's always something new and something unrepeatable and different. It's reactive to people and equipment, and we've set up the ranch to be a proving ground for the scientific method. But science doesn't seem to provide the answers in which we seek." This was unfortunately the best theory we have as to what could have really caused the activity on Skinwalker Ranch, and that each event was too far unique and unlike the previous to be repeated on a consistent basis. Without Robert Bigelow being able to scientifically accredit the site due to the phenomena being too irregular to repeat and study, he sold the ranch to a company called Adamantium Holdings for $4.5 million in 2016. Nevertheless, the research on Skinwalker Ranch continues to this day and is more sophisticated and secretive than ever before. Since Adamantium Holdings purchased the ranch, they installed surveillance equipment all over the property, including high-tech cameras, alarm systems, infrared technology, and more. The property is also routinely patrolled by armed security guards at all times, so please don't even think about going there for any reason. What's also strange is that upon further digging into Adamantium Holdings, I couldn't find any more additional information on them as a company, which would lead me to believe that it's some sort of a funnel or front company or company within a company for either the government or someone who has something to hide. But who knows at this point? With all that being said, what do you guys think was causing the activity at Skinwalker Ranch? I for one think anything is possible. The most plausible explanation to me is that there's some kind of supernatural force or doorway that has allowed some kind of creature, perhaps one not of this world, to enter ours and do as they please. But what do you think? Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe with the bell, and please share this video or any of our other videos with a friend or on social media. It really helps us when you do. Until next time, this has been Cody here at Mystery Archives. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.